April 27, 1986, Pripyat, Ukrainian SSR. The air smells of metal and dust. A faint hum lingers, like an insect trapped inside a glass jar. Beyond the tree line, reactor? No. 4 burns silently, no flames. No explosions now, only a column of smoke twisting into the pale morning sky. 23-year-old Sergeant Alexei Zhukov stands at the edge of the exclusion zone, his Geiger counter clicking like an accelerating heartbeat. He doesn't yet understand what the numbers mean. The device's needle trembles at the far end, pinned against the red zone. He taps it with his finger. The sound doesn't stop. Around him, a convoy of military trucks idles in the mud. Young men conscripts from every corner of the Soviet Union smoke cigarettes, their hands trembling. Some wear makeshift masks of wet cloth. Others, nothing at all. Their orders are simple: liquidate the contamination. The men glance toward the reactor, its skeletal remains still glowing faintly through the smoke. None of them have ever seen such light pale, silent, and wrong. Alexei adjusts his cap, squints through the radiation haze, and mutters, "It looks like dawn." But dawn had already passed hours ago. What shimmered on the horizon wasn't sunlight, it was cesium, graphite, strontium, the invisible ash of a dying machine. He remembers the night before, when the sky over Pripyat suddenly flashed blue, bright as lightning but without thunder. Windows shattered. Dogs barked for hours. The city's loudspeakers stayed silent. The next morning, the soldiers came. Now, he stands where the forest begins, watching helicopters drop sand and boron over the reactor. The wind shifts. Fine dust drifts toward them like snow. "Don't breathe," someone says, too late. They were told it was safe, that it was only a fire. They believed it because they had to. At 09:12, a military officer reads out assignments. Teams are to enter the plant in rotation 90 seconds inside the most contaminated zones. No more. Liquidators. They're called a word that sounds clean, efficient. It hides everything. When Alexei's name is called, he steps forward. His hands are steady, but his vision feels narrow, as if the world has shrunk to the rhythm of his breath. Inside the bus taking them to the reactor, someone jokes about vodka waiting back at the barracks. Another man crosses himself quietly. The driver keeps his eyes on the road, silent. As they approach the reactor grounds, the asphalt ripples with heat distortion. Birds have stopped singing. Even the wind feels artificial, carrying no scent, but burnt graphite. The bus halts near the turbine hall. Their task: clear radioactive debris from the roof using shovels. Time allowed 40 seconds per sortie. Longer means death. Alexei puts on his gas mask. The rubber smells like old rain. He steps outside. The light is too bright. The dosimeter on his chest screams, a shrill, continuous tone that means nothing to him, but makes his stomach twist. The surface of the roof is littered with fragments of graphite black cubes that shimmer faintly. One of them pulses with faint blue light, like something alive. He bends down, scoops it with his shovel, and throws it off the edge. Another piece. Another. The sound it makes when hitting the ground is soft, almost delicate. By the 20th shovel, he can feel his tongue swelling. His vision blurs at the edges. He stumbles. A fellow soldier grabs his arm. "Get back inside." He runs. 40 seconds, maybe less. Inside the shelter, he pulls off the mask. His face is flushed red, his nose bleeding. The officer nods, once. Good work. There are no debriefings, no explanations, just the next name on the list. By evening, Alexei's skin begins to burn. Not pain, more like heat coming from inside. His lips taste of metal. He drinks water, but it feels like swallowing glass. The doctor says it's nothing, just exhaustion. In the barracks, dozens of men lie on their bunks, shivering. The walls glow faintly under ultraviolet lamps meant to sterilize the air. Outside, the reactor keeps burning invisible, patient, eternal. Someone whispers, "They said the worst is over." Someone else laughs, hoarse and dry. "Then why can't we go home?" Alexei closes his eyes, hearing again that constant, mechanical ticking, the sound of radiation eating through time itself. He dreams of his mother's garden near Kursk, the smell of wet soil after rain. When he wakes, his pillow is stained with blood. Beyond the window, the night sky flickers again, the aurora that no one wishes to see. April 28, 1986. The wind has shifted south, over Pripyat. A soft gray drizzle begins to fall, rain mixed with radioactive soot, washing down the apartment blocks, pooling in the cracks of playground pavement. Children still play beneath the swings, chasing each other through puddles that shimmer faintly in the morning light. Their parents stand on balconies, unaware that the storm carries cesium instead of water. 5 kilometers away, at the reactor complex, Alexei Zhukov and his unit line up once more. Their faces are swollen, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling from fever. The officers call them by number, not name. No one asks questions. Each man is issued a new pair of cotton gloves, a simple cloth mask, and a lead-lined vest that covers only the chest. Enough protection for the task, the engineer says without meeting their eyes. The vests are heavy, the lead sewn unevenly, pressing into their ribs. The assignment for today: clear the roof of Building 3 directly adjacent to the exploded reactor. Estimated radiation level $10,000 roentgens per hour. At that rate, standing there for 2 minutes is lethal. They're told to work for 30 seconds each. At the gate, a soldier lights a cigarette. "They should have sent machines," he mutters. "They did," another replies. "The robots died faster than we will." Inside the plant, everything hums: the walls, the air, even the steel beneath their boots. Radiation doesn't sound like anything, yet the men swear they can hear it, a faint hiss, like snow on a dead TV screen. The dosimeters attached to their belts tick uncontrollably, drowning out the orders shouted over the loudspeakers. Alexei's boots stick to the tar of the roof. Every step releases a puff of dust that glitters blue. The graphite blocks are still warm, the remnants of the reactor's core, each piece so irradiated it can kill in seconds. He works beside Lieutenant Mikhail Petrov, a 30-year-old reservist from Minsk. Mikhail was an electrician before this. His hands, once steady, now twitch with every movement. Together they shovel the graphite into wheelbarrows and push it to the edge, dumping it into the open pit below. The work is mechanical, rhythm without thought: scoop, lift, throw, retreat. Their lungs ache from breathing through wet cloth. The wind cuts across their faces, carrying invisible poison. On the ground below, medics wait with stretchers. A man collapses halfway through his shift, his body convulsing, vomiting dark liquid. They drag him away. The next soldier steps forward without hesitation. No one protests, no one runs. To refuse is treason. Alexei's vision doubles. He sees 2 suns above the horizon, one real, one imagined. He knows something is breaking inside him. Still, he keeps shoveling. 30 seconds, the officer shouts. A whistle blows. The men drop their tools and sprint toward the ladder. Inside the stairwell, the air feels thick, almost solid. The radiation follows them like heat. Alexei rips off his mask, gasping. His lips are cracked and bleeding. Mikhail's hands shake so violently that he drops his shovel. The metal clatters down the steps. "Keep moving," someone yells. They emerge into the open air behind the turbine hall. The sky has turned pale yellow, the sun veiled by radioactive haze. Trucks roll by carrying the next group of liquidators' fresh faces, clean uniforms, eyes still clear. By evening, dozens of men are hospitalized in the makeshift medical camp near the Dnieper River. The doctors work without proper protection, cutting away contaminated clothing, injecting morphine, recording vitals that fall by the minute. Alexei lies on a stretcher under a flickering lamp. His skin has turned translucent, veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. He can taste iron and ash. A nurse wipes his forehead with gauze soaked in iodine. She avoids looking at his eyes. "Will I live?" he asks. Her silence is his answer. Outside, helicopters continue to circle above reactor number 4, dumping sand and boron into the smoking crater. The ground below glows faintly at night, a light no human should see. By midnight, the camp fills with moans. Men in their 20s aging by the hour. Their hair falls out in clumps, their gums bleed, their bodies radiate heat like small furnaces. Some are delirious, whispering to mothers, wives, children all hundreds of kilometers away. In a corner cot, Mikhail Petrov dies with his hand clenched around a silver cross. Alexei doesn't notice until morning. When the trucks arrive to collect the bodies, they are sealed in zinc-lined coffins, wrapped in plastic, buried under concrete. Families are not notified. Their service records are classified. The state calls them heroes of Chernobyl. Their names, however, vanish into restricted archives, redacted, forgotten, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and lies. Alexei is too weak to stand. He stares through the tent flap toward the horizon, where smoke still rises like a wound that will never close. He doesn't yet know that in a few days, he will be sent home not to recover, but to die quietly. His uniform burned, his medals unclaimed. The wind outside changes again. It carries the same gray dust, drifting over forests, rivers, villages invisible, eternal. May 2nd, 1986. The evacuation came too late. By the time the buses rolled into Pripyat, the birch trees had already begun to glow faintly under the overcast sky, a sickly fluorescence that clung to their bark like frost. The loudspeakers announced it as a temporary measure. Residents were told to bring documents, a change of clothes, and food for 2 days. They left their cats, their washing hanging on balconies, their family photographs on walls, still warm with life. By nightfall, the city was empty. Curtains fluttered in open windows. Birds nested in the silence. Radiation does not echo. Yet the emptiness seemed to hum. 50 kilometers away, beyond the official exclusion line, small rural settlements still lived as they always had. One of them was Ilovnichi, a farming village, hidden between forests and marshland. It did not appear on many maps. The soldiers never came. Here, an old man named Stepan Kovalenko continued to tend his bees. He was 71 and deaf in one ear, a veteran of the Great Patriotic War. He'd survived Kursk, Stalingrad, hunger, and Stalin's silence. He had no intention of leaving his land for what he called the party's new ghost town. Each morning, he rose before dawn, the way he always had. But now the world around him had changed. The flowers bloomed too early. The grass glowed faintly at night, shimmering beneath the moon like dew. His bees began to die, first by dozens, then by thousands, their tiny bodies piling beneath the hives like seeds spilled in the dust. The radio still played classical music and government announcements. All measures are under control. The situation in Chernobyl is stable. Stepan switched it off. He trusted the silence more than he trusted the voices. On the third day, a convoy of trucks passed through the village. Soldiers in respirators threw white powder on the ground and warned the villagers to stay indoors. No one explained why. They left behind signs marked with the symbol of radiation trefoil triangles painted in red. To the children, they looked like strange flowers. That night, Stepan's neighbor, a woman named Galina, knocked on his door. Her husband, a young liquidator stationed near the plant, hadn't returned. She'd received no letter, no notice, nothing. Only rumors that the men were being buried secretly near Kiev. Their names erased. Stepan offered her tea. They sat by the window as the wind carried fine ash through the forest. The Geiger counter, given to Stepan by a soldier weeks before, clicked softly on the table. Galina looked at it, puzzled. "What does that sound mean?" she asked. He sighed. "It means we're still alive." 2 days later, Galina's youngest child began to vomit blood. The doctor from the district center arrived in a van covered with dust. He wore no protective suit, only gloves and a surgical mask. He examined the boy, wrote something in his notebook, and said, "It's probably the flu." He left before sunset. By morning, the boy was dead. The mother followed 3 weeks later. The state sent no aid, no explanation. The entire region was considered low risk. The invisible snow continued to fall. Stepan buried them himself in the field beyond the forest. The earth there was soft and strangely warm. Days passed, then weeks. The cows refused to drink from the river. Birds flew erratically, their wings singed. The forest grew silent, no crickets, no frogs, no dogs barking at night, only the steady, mechanical clicking from the Geiger counter, marking seconds like a clock without mercy. One evening, Stepan climbed the hill above the village. From there, he could see the red glow still rising from the reactor, a faint pillar against the dark horizon. "It's not fire," he whispered to himself. "It's time burning." He thought of Alexei Zhukov, the boy from Kursk, who had stayed in his house for one night before being sent to clean the roof. Stepan had given him bread and salt, and the boy had left smiling. That was the last time he'd seen him. Weeks later, a sealed letter arrived from the military hospital in Kiev. Inside was a certificate cause of death, acute radiation syndrome. The envelope smelled faintly of iodine. Stepan placed it in a tin box beside his medals. He never opened it again. By autumn, Ilovnichi was deserted. The few who survived were evacuated by force, loaded onto trucks, their livestock shot, their wells sealed. The village was bulldozed, buried beneath meters of contaminated soil. Today, only the foundations remain overgrown with moss that still measures hot on modern detectors. In the center of what was once the square, a single beehive stands cracked, empty, and silent. The bees never returned. Somewhere beneath that earth lies the village that time forgot. Summer 1986, Kyiv Military Hospital. No, 6. The windows are sealed with plastic sheets. The air smells of antiseptic and burnt flesh. Inside, the corridors glow with a bluish light, the kind used to sterilize bacteria, but it cannot cleanse what lingers here. Alexei Zhukov lies in bed 47, Ward C. His body is a map of wounds that do not close. The nurses change his bandages every hour. His skin peels away like paper. The radiation has entered his marrow. It eats from within. Quietly, methodically, without pity. He does not remember arriving. Only fragments remain: the jolt of the ambulance, the sound of his name spoken by strangers, the brief flash of sunlight through the oxygen mask. Now, he drifts between sleep and delirium. He dreams of graphite glowing like ice, of bees falling from the sky, of rivers that hum when the wind passes over them. The nurse assigned to him is named Anya. She is 26 from Kharkiv and has been working without rest for weeks. Her face is hidden behind gauze and goggles, her hands raw from disinfectant. She speaks softly to the men, as if her voice might keep them tethered to this world a little longer. When she enters Alexei's room, she brings a small cassette player. It plays a song banned on Soviet Radio Stalker by Kino. The melody drifts through the sterile air like a ghost of something human. He opens his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he whispers. She smiles. "Neither should you." Around them, rows of young soldiers lie motionless beneath white sheets. Some still breathe, some do not. Their names are recorded on temporary tags, but the tags are changed daily. When they die, their bodies are sealed in zinc coffins, their files stamped classified. Anya writes their real names in a notebook she keeps hidden in her coat pocket. "Someone must remember them," she says. In the basement of the hospital, the air is cooler. The walls are lined with coffins, hundreds of them, stacked like cargo. Each is sprayed with phenol to delay decay. But the smell of metal and death seeps through the cracks. Guards stand at the entrance, smoking in silence. The official orders forbid any viewing of the dead. Even families are denied burial rights. National security. The documents say, avoid panic. Anya has stopped counting how many she's seen. Every night, she washes her hands until her skin bleeds. She can't sleep every time she closes her eyes. She sees faces dissolving, hair falling out in clumps, fingernails turning black like charred wood. On June 14th, Alexei begins to hallucinate. He tells her he can see the reactor burning behind her shoulder, like a second sun. He asks her to open the window. "There's no window," she says. "There was," he insists. Before they sealed it, she places a damp cloth on his forehead. His pulse is faint, his breath shallow. The doctors know he will not last the night. They speak in low tones outside his door: systemic failure, marrow collapse, impossible recovery. At 02:17, his heart stops. No alarm sound. No one calls for the priest. Anya closes his eyes, folds his hands, and whispers, "You can rest now." She stays beside him until dawn, writing his name, Sergeant Alexei Zhukov, 23 Kursk, in her notebook. Then she tears out the page and hides it beneath a tile in the nurse's dormitory. The next day, the order comes down: all personal belongings of deceased liquidators are to be destroyed. Clothes burned, beds disinfected, files archived under code designation Z40. By the end of June, the ward is empty, the beds are replaced, the walls repainted. Official reports claim all patients have been successfully treated and discharged. No one mentions the zinc coffins quietly loaded onto trucks before dawn, bound for a cemetery outside Moscow. Years later, when the Soviet Union collapses, those graves will still be unmarked. Only one nurse, older now, her hands trembling, will remember their faces. She will visit Chernobyl once, in 1994, wearing a dosimeter around her neck. The needle still moves when she steps near the abandoned reactor. The grass glows faintly under the afternoon sun. She kneels, places a single sunflower in the soil, and whispers the names from her notebook one by one. Then she walks back toward the empty road, the wind brushing her hair, carrying the faintest echo of a Geiger counter's clicking, the heartbeat of ghosts no one ever buried. Autumn, 1986, northern Ukraine. The forests have changed. Leaves no longer fall in the wind, they crumble at the edges. edges brittle like burned paper. The animals move strangely, slower, uncertain. Some are blind, some glow faintly in the moonlight. The land breathes sickness now, quiet and unseen. The Soviet authorities call it the Zona Otrozhenia, the zone of exclusion. To the few who remain inside, it is simply the zone. 30 kilometers around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, sealed by roadblocks and wire. Signs warn danger radiation, but wind and water have no borders. Stepan Kovalenko still lives here. He is alone now, the last man in Ilovnichi. The rest were evacuated or buried under concrete by bulldozers that came in the night. He had refused to leave, hiding in the forest until the trucks were gone. The soldiers no longer patrol this far. There is nothing left to protect. He spends his days walking through empty streets reclaimed by weeds, past houses half sunken into earth. The schoolyard swings creak in the wind. The chalkboard still carries half-erased lessons Comrade Lenin watches over our future. At dusk, the air thickens with the scent of decay and rain. Stepan keeps a journal now written in a school notebook found beneath the ruins of the library. The ink fades quickly. The paper stains with his sweat. He writes not for others, but to keep himself from vanishing. He notes the things the world has forgotten. No birds since August. The bees are gone. My skin burns after touching the soil. At night, I can hear something humming from the west, like a machine still running underground. The humming never stops. Sometimes he sees lights flicker above the horizon, near the remains of Reactor No. 4. They rise slowly, drift, then vanish. He tells himself they are military flares, but deep down, he knows no soldiers remain. He finds the ruins of a bus on the road to Pripyat. Inside, the seats are coated in white dust, footprints fossilized in it. Someone had written on the window with a trembling finger, "We will come back." They never did. Every few weeks, helicopters fly overhead, dropping strange white foam across the treetops. It leaves a bitter smell, like burnt sugar. Stepan hides until the sound fades. He doesn't trust anything that comes from the sky anymore. In late October, a group of men in gas masks arrive by truck. They wear no insignia, only gray suits, their faces hidden. They carry instruments that click and whine. They speak in short, coded phrases. One of them notices Stepan watching from the trees. "Old man," the leader shouts. "You can't stay here." Stepan doesn't move. "I've been here longer than you've been alive." The man lowers his mask for a moment, his face young, pale. "If you stay, you'll die." Stepan smiles faintly. "So will you." That night, he returns to the ruins of his house. The roof has collapsed. The walls lean inward. He lights a candle and sits beside the tin box that holds Alexei's death certificate. The wind seeps through the cracks, making the flame dance. He opens the journal and writes, "They say the zone is empty. They lie," it remembers. Outside, the fog thickens. The Geiger counter he keeps beside his bed begins to tick faster. The air hums. The ground trembles faintly, as if something deep beneath it has shifted. In the distance, a faint blue glow rises from the horizon, the same unnatural light that had once crowned Reactor No. 4. For a moment, the forest glitters like glass. Then everything goes still. Stepan closes his eyes and listens. The silence feels heavier than sound. Weeks later, the patrols find his hut empty. The bed is unmade, the candle burned down to wax, the journal left open on the table. The last entry reads, "The bees have returned. I can hear them." They never find his body. Over the next decade, the zone reclaims everything trees grow through roofs. Wolves wander through empty homes. Moss covers the concrete roads. Radiation fades, but never disappears. It becomes part of the air, part of the soil, part of memory. And in Pripyat, the Ferris wheel still stands frozen, unmoving, its yellow cabin swaying gently in the wind that carries whispers from the villages buried beneath time. Spring, 1991, Kiev, Ukrainian SSR months before the Soviet Union dissolves. In a dim, windowless office beneath the Ministry of Energy, boxes are stacked to the ceiling, thousands of them, labeled only by codes Z40, Z41, Z42. Each one contains fragments of Chernobyl's erased history photographs that were never published, reports marked Sovershchena Sekretna top secret, and lists of names liquidators, engineers, pilots, and civilians who vanished from official records. The archivist, Lieutenant Colonel Pavel Taranenko, works in silence. He is 58, a man whose uniform has outlasted the truth it once served. He was there in the first days he saw the graphite burning, the men on the roofs, the bodies sealed in lead-lined coffins. His duty now is to make them disappear again, this time on paper. He removes a file marked Medical Data Unit 732A Zhukov. Alexei. Inside are a few pages of photo of a young man in uniform, eyes squinting against sunlight. A hospital chart ending abruptly with the word terminated, a signature that fades before the last letter. Taranenko stares at it for a long time, then closes the folder. He knows what the party expects: destruction. The files are to be shredded, burned, or sealed under 40 years of bureaucratic silence. Yet something in him resists a tremor of conscience too small to voice aloud. In the corner of the room stands a crate labeled non-essential material to be disposed. Inside, he finds Anya's hidden notebook, the one recovered years later when the nurses' quarters were demolished. Its cover is blackened with mold, its pages warped, the ink bleeding into the paper like veins. Still, the names remain legible. 116 names, all men who never existed. He reads them slowly, one by one, until dawn. Then he wraps the notebook in a piece of plastic and hides it beneath the floorboards. History will need witnesses, he murmurs. 2 months later, the Soviet Union collapses. Chernobyl becomes the first monument of a dead empire, a cathedral of silence, where the sins of science and secrecy intertwine. Reporters begin to arrive from the West, filming the ruins, calling it the ghost zone. They see the rusting Ferris wheel, the empty schools, the toys left behind, but they do not see the graves beneath their feet. Stepan's village, Ilovnichi, does not appear on any new map. Its coordinates are missing from satellite records, as though the Earth itself has forgotten where it once stood. Only the radiation remembers, humming faintly in the soil. By the late 1990s, the first stalkers, scavengers, explorers, the curious begin entering the zone. They find remnants of lives turned to dust, a doll on a windowsill, a calendar frozen on April 1986, a family photograph sealed behind glass, the eyes of the father blurred by decay. One of them, a historian named Ilya Kravchenko, finds an unmarked grave near the remains of Ilovnichi. Buried with the bones is a rusted tin box containing a military badge and a folded paper. The name Alexei Zhukov. The document, his death certificate, stamped and unsigned. Kravchenko sends it to Kyiv, where it's logged, photographed, and filed, this time under recovered artifact, provenance unknown. The archivists do not realize they have already buried the same man twice. Years pass. The sarcophagus over Reactor. Reactor 4 begins to crack. Moss and water eat through the concrete. The hum of decay becomes part of the landscape steady. patient, eternal. In 2001, the Ukrainian government finally releases partial lists of liquidators. Over 600,000 men had been sent into the zone. More than half would die or suffer chronic radiation illnesses. Many never received recognition or compensation. Their families were told, service records lost. No one mentions the villages erased from maps, or the civilians who stayed behind, like Stepan. Inside the newly opened Chernobyl Museum in Kyiv, a display case holds a single melted Geiger counter. Its needle points forever to the maximum. The caption beneath it reads, "Unknown origin, found near Pripyat, believed to belong to an early liquidator team." No one knows that. Long ago, it once ticked on a wooden table in a small house beside the forest, the last heartbeat of a world already gone. Outside, the city moves on neon signs, cell towers, traffic lights blinking through smog. But when the wind blows from the north, the people of Kyiv still smell something faint in the air, metallic, electric, and old. A reminder, because time does not forget what man refuses to remember. April 26, 2006, Chernobyl exclusion zone. Exactly 20 years since the night the sky turned white. The road to Pripyat is cracked and overgrown, a narrow ribbon of asphalt swallowed by birch and moss every kilometer. The Geiger counter clipped to the belt of journalist Dmytro Levin chirps a little faster. The numbers rise with the wind. He walks alone. The checkpoint guards let him through with a shrug. No one cares much now. The zone has become both museum and myth, a pilgrimage for those chasing ghosts. The silence feels alive. Buildings lean against one another like old men. Their windows hollow eyes. School no. 3 still stands. Chalk drawings of rockets and stars cling faintly to the walls. In the gymnasium, a basketball lies deflated on the floor, its surface melted by time. Dust motes hang suspended in beams of cold sunlight. Dmytro moves carefully, his camera humming softly. He's here for a documentary, another anniversary piece. He's done a dozen of them. But something about this place always pulls him back. He was 6 when the reactor exploded. His father had been among the liquidators. His name, too, never appeared on any list. He finds his way to the Ferris wheel. It towers silently above the trees, its yellow cabin still turning slightly when the wind passes. Beneath it, a small memorial has been left, a few candles, a child's toy soldier, a faded photograph of a young man in a Soviet uniform. The name on the back reads Alexei Zhukov. The name is unfamiliar, yet something in the expression, the distant stare, the weary youth, unsettles him. He photographs it anyway. Later that afternoon, he reaches the ruins of Ilovnichi. The map calls it Sector 14B, but the forest has reclaimed nearly everything. He steps through the undergrowth until the metal of his dosimeter begins to scream. There, half buried in soil, stands a cracked beehive, the wood gray, the interior hollow. Inside it, he finds a tin box, rusted, sealed. He pries it open with a knife. Inside are scraps of paper fused together by moisture, a few lines still legible. The zone remembers. And beneath that, the bees have returned. He closes the box and kneels in the dirt, feeling the strange warmth rising from the ground, not heat, but something denser. As if the earth itself still breathes the radiation it swallowed decades ago. The sound of wind through the grass resembles the static of an old Geiger counter, whispering the rhythm of a heart long stopped. As evening falls, he sets up his camera facing the horizon, where the reactor dome now glows. Beneath the setting sun, a new sarcophagus of steel, modern, shining, expensive. Yet beneath it lies the same wound, still alive, still waiting. He speaks softly into the recorder. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. It was a monument to silence built with lies, sealed with fear, and guarded by ghosts. The light fades. The air cools. Somewhere in the distance, a metal structure groans, collapsing under its own rust. The sound echoes through the zone like a sigh. When Dmytro returns to Kiev, he delivers his footage to the producers. They cut most of it too grim. They say, too quiet, not enough human faces. The story airs for 3 minutes on a Sunday broadcast, between segments about sports and weather. No one mentions the name on the photograph. No one speaks of Ilovnichi. But late that night, Dmytro sits in his apartment, rewatching the raw footage. In the background of one shot, just for a second, he sees movement. A figure, faint and gray, walking near the tree line where the village once stood. Too distant to identify, too deliberate to be wind. He rewinds, pauses, plays again. The figure turns its head, just slightly, toward the camera, then vanishes. He leans back in his chair, heart pounding. The Geiger counter he brought back from the zone sits on his desk. For a moment, it clicks once, a single pulse, then silence. Outside, a storm gathers over Kiev. Rain begins to fall, tapping against the windows in soft, rhythmic beats. In the distance, thunder rolls slow, deliberate, echoing the breath of the reactor that never truly died. And for those who still remember, April 26 is not an anniversary. It is an unfinished sentence. April 26, 2016. 30 years since the explosion that changed the map of the world, the new confinement arch, the largest movable structure ever built by human hands, slides into place over the skeletal ruins of reactor number 4. It gleams under the gray sky, massive and sterile, like a tomb built for a god no one worships anymore. Crowds gather beyond the perimeter fence: politicians, journalists, engineers, survivors. The speeches are solemn, rehearsed. Words like sacrifice, progress, safety drift through the air like dust. Cameras click, applause follows. But behind the walls, the old sarcophagus still leaks. Beneath it, the molten remains of the reactor, a fusion of uranium, graphite, and steel known as the elephant's foot, continues to burn in silence. A slow fire that will outlive every person standing there. Among the small group of invited guests is a frail woman in her late 50s, Anya Morozova, former nurse of hospital number 6. She wears a simple black coat and carries no camera, no flowers, only a worn notebook bound with tape. The same one she once hid beneath the floorboards. Her hands shake as she opens it. The ink has faded. The paper crumbles at the edges. But the names are still there, hundreds of them, written in her careful hand. She reads them quietly, her lips moving without sound. When her turn comes to lay a wreath, she places the notebook on the concrete barrier instead. A guard steps forward, hesitates, then lets her pass. No one stops her. Perhaps they understand. Rain begins to fall fine, steady, relentless. It beads on her coat and on the metal of the monument, tracing rivulets down the engraved plaque that reads, "To those who saved the world." But the truth is more complicated. They didn't save it, they delayed its end. Anya closes her eyes and remembers the faces: Alexei, Mikhail, the nameless others, the young men who laughed, who smoked, who never came back. She remembers the taste of iodine in the air, the sound of the Geiger counters ticking like clocks counting down their lives. Around her, the officials disperse, Reporters pack their equipment, heading for buses. The rain deepens. The site empties again, returning to the silence that has defined it for decades. She stays until dusk. The wind smells faintly metallic from far away. The forest hums a low, constant vibration that seems to come from the bones of the earth. In the distance, beyond the arch, a single yellow Ferris wheel stands against the horizon, rusted, immovable, eternal. Anya whispers, "We are still here." Then she turns and walks away. Years pass. The zone grows wild again. Wolves hunt in the empty suburbs. Trees split through concrete. Rivers reclaim the roads. The radiation softens, but never dies. Tourists arrive with cameras and dosimeters, chasing the romance of ruin. They pose in front of the Ferris wheel, smiling, unaware of the bones beneath their feet. The air carries no warning. The soil keeps its secrets. In 2020, satellite imagery reveals strange heat signatures under Reactor No. 4 residual nuclear reactions, dormant for decades, flickering back to life. The scientists debate it calmly on television. No danger, they say. Only memory. But memory has always been the most dangerous thing. In a university lab in Kyiv, Dmytro Levin's documentary plays to a small audience. He stands before the screen, older now, his voice steady. He ends his lecture with a single image, the photograph of the soldier's face found beneath the Ferris wheel. "Alexei Zhukov," he says quietly. Officially, he never existed, but he was there. And if one forgotten name can resurface after 30 years, how many others wait beneath the ash? The room is silent. Outside, the rain begins again, soft, endless, radioactive only in memory. Between 1986 and 1991, over 600,000 Soviet citizens participated in Chernobyl's cleanup operation. They were miners, firefighters, engineers, and soldiers, the liquidators. More than 200,000 are estimated to have died prematurely from radiation-related illness. Thousands more still suffer chronic conditions, cancers, blood disorders, genetic damage passed to their children. Entire villages like Ilovnichi were erased from maps. The Soviet government suppressed casualty data, destroyed records, and silenced witnesses for decades. Only after the USSR collapsed did fragments of truth surface, scattered, incomplete, unacknowledged. Today, the zone remains one of the most contaminated places on Earth. Beneath its soil lies 100 tons of radioactive waste that will remain lethal for 24,000 years. Chernobyl was not just a reactor meltdown. It was a collapse of trust, of truth, of the illusion that human systems can contain the power they unleash. And yet, the silence continues, bureaucratic, polite, institutional. So the question remains, when history buries its dead in secrecy, who will remember their names? What are your thoughts on the forgotten soldiers and the erased villages of Chernobyl? Please share them in the comments below.